Why are there so many songs about rainbows, and what's on the other side? Rainbows are visions, they're only illusions, and rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it, but I know they're wrong. Wait and see. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. Who said that every wish would be heard and answered when wished on the morning star? Somebody thought of that, and someone believed it, and look what it's done so far. What's so amazing that keeps us stargazing? What do we think we might see? Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. All of us under its spell, we know that it's probably magic. Have you been half asleep, and have you heard voices? I've heard them calling my name. Are these the sweet sounds that called the young sailors? The voice might be one and the same. I've heard it too many times to ignore it. There's something that I'm supposed to be. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. La da da dee 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 dee, do 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 do.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Oh, that sounded so beautiful, guys. I can't think of anything more boring than living by the expectations of other people. Let the hens gossip and cluck and clack whenever you walk into the room with your mismatched socks and stardust falling out of your wild pink hair. Because in a little while, when you get up to leave to continue on with your adventure, every single one of them will wish that they were going with you. Welcome to Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm the Reverend Tiffany Sapp, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm the minister of this church, and I am so happy to be with you today. And I was so happy to see so many of you at Tri-Pride yesterday, too. Whether I saw you at the parade or at the booths, it was just great to gather with you in celebration and solidarity. It was also incredible to see all the other groups that we are allied with there, and to see some of you at the allied booths as well. It highlights how blessed we are to be part of a really interconnected community who wants to transform the world by working together. And if we here are really lucky, maybe you're here for the first time because we met you at Pride. If that's the case, I want to say an extra enthusiastic welcome to you. Being out in Bristol with you all yesterday made me think about how freeing it is to be with people that you can just be yourself with. When I was younger, I tried so hard to fit in, so it especially tugs at my heart to get to see so many people walking their own walk and singing their own song now. I hope that, like Tri-Pride, this community can be a place where you can be free to be you. Some of the ways that we are pressured to conform can be kind of in your face and painful. And then there are other societal influences that are more subtle, but still kind of tell you that you're not allowed to be fully you. Today, we're going to explore the times that we try our hardest to fit in and the times that we decide, no, I cannot do that anymore.
We light this chalice to symbolize our faith, a faith that means it when we say, welcome, a faith that celebrates all voices and faces, a faith free of creeds and full of relationships, a faith where there is room for you and all that you are. Good morning. I am Rosemary, your service leader here at Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. We welcome you, old friends and new, young and old, online and in person. You are an essential part of our gathering today. Whether today is your first or your 1,000th Sunday with us, we are stronger because of your presence. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, many sexualities and genders. We are all growing and learning, and all are loved. Just as you are welcome here. Please silence your cell phones. Please observe the perfume-free zone, which is this wedge to my right. Make sure to look for people's wristbands, yellow, green, or red, that you can respect their distancing needs. And please wear masks during this time of higher risk. Making this a safer place is our goal. So anyone you see up here today who is unmasked has tested negative for COVID this morning. Today's Time for All Ages story comes from the book Beautiful Signs, a treasury of Islamic wisdom for children and parents. Reverend Tiffany has adapted the story to our spoken word format. There was, and there was not, a time when Yoha and his son set out for the market with their donkey walking along behind them. They passed several men sitting outside a shop drinking tea and heard some of their remarks.
Look at that man. How can he be so mean to make his child walk all the way to market when he has a donkey that the child could easily ride?
Yoha immediately picked up his son and put him on the donkey's back. They continued on this way for a while until they passed several women who were also on their way to market.
For shame! Look at that child riding the donkey while he makes his father walk. Doesn't he respect his elders?
Right away, Yoha took his son off the donkey and got on himself. And of course, then he heard,
How could that man be so selfish, riding on the donkey while he makes his son walk?
So then he picked up his child and placed him on the saddle right in front of him so that the donkey carried both of them, which led to comments like,
How mean they are to overload that poor donkey like that.
There's only one thing to do, thought Yoha, in despair. He and his son dismounted. After a great deal of effort, Yoha managed to heave the donkey upon his own back. Only a little way down the road, everyone was laughing at the man carrying the donkey instead of riding it. Embarrassed, Yoha put down the donkey and they continued to market exactly as they had started, with all three walking. Some minutes later, Yoha looked at his son and said,
So you see, it is clearly not possible to please all people. It is better to do what you know is right and please God instead. We really can get pulled back and forth by people's expectations of what we should be doing. We can chase the illusions made by these expectations or mindfully discern the right course of action for ourselves. Our special music talks about illusions too, and what a gift it can be to see life in a deeper way from both sides.
Rose and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, and now it's only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from give and down, and still somehow it's clouds illusions. I recall, I really don't know clouds at all.
Thank you for that. We bring all that we are to this community. Our joys and our sorrows are welcome here, and we hold them together. If you'd like to share a joy or a sorrow in person, you can use these candles cards, which are located right back there. And if you'd like to share a joy or a concern from a distance, you can email minister@hvuuc.org. We do have a card. This is from Katie and says, "Blessings on my 4-year-old daughter as she embarks on a new preschool year. I am so proud of her." That is awesome. And there's a lot of community joys too. There's Tri-Pride joys, which you're going to have a hard time getting me to be quiet about how much I enjoyed Tri-Pride. The marchers were a joy. I was trying to count the people in the picture, and I think there were about 25 people marching with us. The booths were a joy. We had a great time hanging out there in the shade, and big thanks to Dottie for organizing that, and to George for setting up our booth. Water providers were a joy. Sunscreen providers were a joy, and it was a team process to get sunblock on my face before the march started. And all the ways that we took care of each other and all the cool people that we met were real joys at Tri-Pride. It's also a joy that we have a Path to Membership class today, and I'm very excited about getting to know some of the newer people here in this congregation. That's really exciting to me. And there's all sorts of concerns too. There are stories that I heard yesterday and that I have heard for weeks now about people experiencing oppression and rejection in their churches, in their families, in their schools. And I'd love for us to hold all those folks in our hearts. And we may even be some of them here. Our hearts call us to be a place where love and acceptance is practiced. And so I want to invite you to breathe that in and out for a few moments of silence as we hold these things together. If you want a candle to be lit for yourself, a loved one, or a situation close to your heart, I invite you to make that request by standing or by raising your hand when loving kindness plays, which will happen in just a moment. Then I will acknowledge each of you with the motion of my hand, and you can sit down or lower your hand after I acknowledge you. And we light our first candle for you who are not in our building, but are ever in our hearts and minds. our hearts and in our minds. Our reading is a poem written by a friend of this church and a personal friend of mine, the Reverend Juniper Meadows. Juniper is a poet, a singer-songwriter, and a trans woman. She wrote this poem after an open mic night when she was just sick and tired of people commenting on the deep sound of her voice. This is a love letter to my voice. I do not sound like a man. My voice is a tempest in tenor, winds blowing so hard they make the bells ring, some soft starlight skipping to sunbeams shining on everything. I cannot stay small. I cannot embody the bad story of how women are to shrink. The moon in her perigee, full of all the light she has been given, give me a big voice like that, so I can bounce it all back, slow and loud. I do not sound like anything. I chew through the vocal cords of the advertising agency, put all my bad faith that passing as the path to safety on the pyre, let my voice sound like that fire, smoke and mirrors, silence and symphony. This is my gift to me, to love the sound of my own voice, like it's a gift from God themselves, and speak its million colors.
About 10 years ago, I gave my first sermon ever here, right here at HVUC. While I was not new to public speaking, I was years out of practice and so nervous. But I was super excited to share the topic about not assuming negative intent. I practiced. I vetted my sermon with a few friends, and finally I felt ready. When done, I was pretty stoked. I was like, oh, I nailed it. I totally nailed it. It was recorded. This is before we had cameras. And I later got to hear that sermon. The message was what I had been going for. No problem there. But the sound of my voice, to me, was dreadful. Now, don't get me wrong, we all know that how we hear our own voice versus how we hear recordings of our voices are different. I was prepared for that, and it didn't bother me. No, what had me so bothered was how high-pitched my speaking voice was during the sermon. Instead of sophisticated Lauren Bacall tone, I heard the opposite, a little girl's high-pitched voice. The more enthusiastic I got about my topic, the higher it went. It sounded so unprofessional to my ears. I worried that the message that meant so much to me to share with you never landed because of that little girl voice. When I mentioned this to others, the feedback was that it didn't bother them. I figured they were just being polite, right? Because you all are very polite. But I've wondered what messaging from my lifetime has made me think that only women with lower pitched voices are heard and taken seriously. Why do I dislike hearing high-pitched speakers so much, particularly in me? I assumed it was an unconscious message I absorbed from popular culture. I posed this question recently to Tiffany, and she shared some interesting perspectives on this. She brings something for all of us to chew on today. With Reverend Tiffany's perspective and Juniper's beautiful journey to love, I have a path to find acceptance, maybe even love, for the sound of my speaking voice, whether it is a calm and confident alto or even a squeaky, enthusiastic soprano.
Too deep, too high, too loud, too soft. Whether the criticism is internal or external, there seems to be some sort of societal consensus about what a woman's voice should sound like. Speaking professionally, I was told often that when I get excited, my pitch gets too high and that it's really unpleasant to the listener. Many female ministers have been coached to find a way to bring their speaking voice into a lower range. It is considered practical and well-meaning advice so that your voice doesn't become an obstacle to the message that you want to share with people. And honestly, I am willing to make some adjustments and fit the mold of people's expectations to a certain degree, whether I have to or not. Whether you all would accept super excited high-pitched Tiffany or not, I feel that internal pressure to the point that it's even kind of hard to give you the example of what it could be. Part of this is that fighting every battle or dying on every hill doesn't work for me. I do want to save my energy for what matters, and I have decided that adjusting my voice to make it more listenable is worth the effort for me. But this frequently occurring conversations about women's voices does invite us to think more deeply about why these standards exist and where they came from. Why have we been trained culturally to only listen to certain voices in certain ranges? Why is one of the prerequisites for being taken seriously that I must change how I express myself? And who gets to decide what that acceptable range is anyway? A high woman's voice is hard to listen to, but according to Juniper's experiences, when she goes too low, she's not performing femininity right. How narrow is that path of what's acceptable, and how willing are we to struggle to stay on that path? For me, submitting to the pressure to conform has sometimes been the price that I have paid to get my message across. Even though I probably shouldn't have to, I have other battles that I want to save my energy on. But the pressure to conform and the mental calculus we do to figure out whether it's worth it to resist are definitely not limited to just the problem of women's speaking voices. Many marginalized people have a version of this. Autistic folks call it masking, queer folks call it passing, and people of color call it code switching. When Barack Obama met with the U.S. men's Olympic basketball team in 2012, he code switched. It made the news. There are videos where he first shakes the white coach's hand. It's very formal, very businesslike. It's the handshake you would see at a board meeting. And then he greeted one of the basketball players, and there were a few extra moves. There was a wider hand clasp coming in, and then there was almost a little bit of a chest bump action. The first handshake is what the world expects of all of us. And for someone as successful as President Obama, he knows when to turn that on. The second handshake was for a connection made possible by a shared culture. It's code switching. People of color have engaged in code switching in society and especially in the workplace long before we had a word for it. A study put on by the Harvard Business Review in 2019 defines code switching as adjusting one's speech, appearance, behavior, and expression in a way that will optimize the comfort of others in exchange for fair treatment, quality service, and employment opportunities. Did you hear that? Did you hear my voice? Did you hear that? I got excited. Changing how you present yourself to make others more comfortable so that you can be treated fairly or even get a job. That's code switching. The study shows that there are positive outcomes for people of color who engage in code switching, things like increased camaraderie in predominantly white workplaces and even promotions. There's a price for code switching too, though. The effort involved in fitting in takes energy. This extra emotional and mental labor put into code switching can be exhausting, and the study says it contributes to burnout. There's a mental and emotional price to making people who have power over you feel more comfortable with you just so you can be treated fairly. You shouldn't have to do that. Do we really even need a study to tell us that feeling like you can't bring your whole self somewhere is exhausting and demoralizing? Don't all of us know how this feels in some way, shape, or form? It's a dilemma that many of us face in many ways. My autistic friend in Florida talks about masking and the way that he learned to adjust his behaviors to better fit in with a neurotypical crowd. He deliberately works on strategies around appearing to make eye contact without actually making eye contact. You look right here. And how he tries to be aware of when he's getting too talkative about his favorite subjects. And he shouldn't have to do that. Many of us, may have chosen to hold our tongues about politics at the Thanksgiving dinner table. Or we may have decided to be vague with coworkers about what church we go to. And we shouldn't have to do that. The LGBTQ plus community has a word for this too, passing. Passing is when you're part of a marginalized group, but you can pass as a member of a dominant group instead. Sometimes people do this just to make life easier for themselves, and sometimes they do it because their lives may be in danger if they don't. And they shouldn't have to do that. There's an energetic cost to being marginalized. It will cost us emotional energy to tone down or hide parts of ourselves through code switching, masking, or passing. And it will cost us emotional energy to be our whole selves in front of people who have not earned the right to know us, to people who've made it clear they won't accept us. Either way, there's an energetic cost to being on the margins. I think about all of the privileges that I personally have been handed and all the ways I don't have to hide myself. And the matter of having to adjust my voice seems really small in light of these bigger ways that other folks have to hide huge parts of themselves, almost their whole selves. It really says something that there are so many communities that have so many terms that mean I'm going to please you and not make you uncomfortable so that you don't oppress me. And each person has to make their own journey to know when they want to take that risk, to be a little more themselves, to fit in a little less, to be that square peg, to be the fish swimming against the school, to be the green crayon in the box when every other crayon is orange. Sometimes it's not safe or practical to let your full self shine out there. But that's out there. As we are struggling how we exist in the world, I hope that it is always safe and practical to be ourselves in here. So many of our Unitarian Universalist principles revolve around building this kind of community. Our third principle says that we are committed to acceptance of one another and encouragement towards spiritual growth. Acceptance is so much more than tolerance. Acceptance is, yes, you belong here with us just as you are. We aren't going to tolerate your presence among us. We are going to celebrate your presence with us. It's why part of the Our Whole Lives Sexuality Education teacher training includes the idea of preemptive radical inclusion. This means that we operate on the assumption that everybody is already in the room. It's the deepest form of hospitality to say that we are going to consider your needs before you even let us know that you're here. There's always more work to do in that area, but we really are trying to build acceptance and inclusion into our community at the foundational level. And I think it's cool that the third principle puts acceptance and spiritual growth together, because it is spiritual growth to be open to folks being just who they are, without requiring them to code switch, pass, mask, or adjust their voice. And it is spiritual growth to take that leap of faith in your community and show people who you are at a deeper level. The discomfort that comes with that stretching towards personal authenticity helps us grow. This is what New York Times essayist Tim Kreider said when he was talking about when he said, if we want the rewards of being loved, we have to submit to the mortifying ordeal of being known. It's risky to let people see who we are, but it's also so very rewarding, and it might just be at the heart of what it means to be a human. Letting yourself be loved by your community by letting them see the real you, and learning to love the parts of yourself that you've been told you shouldn't love is the real work of being human. It's work that can only happen in relationship. I hope that our web of relationships here invites us to do that transformational work together. Many years back, when I was doing a chaplain internship at the VA here in Johnson City, I experienced my own mortifying ordeal of being known in many, many ways. That is apparently what the chaplain training process is all about. When I would visit patients, the question would occasionally come up about what religion or denomination I was. In fear of being judged, I would often respond, "Oh, I'm Unitarian Universalist. I'm sure you've never heard of this." And then I would just deflect back to talking about them, which was why we were there to begin with. That usually worked. Every once in a while, I'd get some negative reactions from the occasional person who had a religiously conservative minister who told them that Unitarian Universalists are an evil cult. But that was just occasionally. But it happened often enough that my emotional shields went up when one woman responded to my breezy, dismissive, "I'm sure you've never heard of us" answer by saying, "Oh, you're a Unitarian Universalist? I know exactly who you are." I waited with bated breath for a judgment that never came. Instead, she said, "I know who you are. You're the church that loves everybody." And then she told me about how her niece had wanted to marry her girlfriend and how it was the Unitarian Universalists who welcomed them in and did their wedding. At a time when I was disheartened by negative reactions, this one came at me as if it was floating down on a sunbeam through parted clouds. We're the church that loves everybody. That is such an ambitious ideal to live up to, but I really love shooting for it. I love aiming for preemptive radical inclusion. I love creating a place where code switching and passing and masking might not have to be a thing. I love the idea that if we keep trying, we really can live up to our third principle's call to acceptance and growth for each other and for our own selves. And for those of us who can, we can take the support we receive in here and allow it to give us the emotional energy we need out there to push just a little bit at the world's norms. In her blog titled, "Now is Not the Time for Passing," queer Unitarian Universalist minister Gretchen Haley reminds us that being visible, not allowing ourselves to be erased or disappear into a crowd of social norms, is a powerful way to affect policies and legislation. So I want to close this reflection with some of her words. Now is the time to shave your head and get that tattoo and get that extra piercing. Now is the time to fly that leather flag and wear that t-shirt that would make your parents blush. Now is the time to be yourself in the most particular ways you can and to celebrate the ways that others are themselves in the most particular ways that they are. May it be so, and amen.
We thank you for, the chalice is extinguished, but the fire still burns within. The warmth of acceptance, the light of living our own truths, the vessel of community that holds us all, these remain in our hearts. We thank you for being with us today. We hope that you are giving some thought to how you want to be part of this community that works together. We will not be having coffee hour today or any day while we're at high risk level, but you are welcome to linger and socialize, especially outside. It's not too late to sign up for our 4-part Owning Your Religious Past religious education series offered by Reverend Tiffany and our Director of Religious Education, Sarah White, on September 4th, 18th, October 16th, and November 6th. Class will run from 12:30 until 2:30 after church on each of those days. This is a chance to gather with other friends and members of this congregation and explore how your personal religious journey has impacted your journey to where you are at today. Please contact Reverend Tiffany at minister@hvuuc.org to sign up no later than this Tuesday. Save the date for the church picnic, which will be happening on Sunday, September 25th. And we're looking for a few volunteers to take the food we collect in the lobby to the new Hunger First location in Gate City, Virginia. Please reach out to Mary Williamson or email mary@hvuuc.org to volunteer. You can learn more about the many opportunities for fellowship, justice work, and working together by visiting our website, hvuuc.org, and checking out our news and events section, or by getting a paper copy of our newsletter, which you can find on the back table. Thank you for being with us today. I hope we can, excuse me.
I mean, we're just really glad you're here today because we're going to keep saying thank you for being with us today. And I do hope we can work together to build this community into a place where we are free to be who we truly are and that we can find the love and acceptance that we seek here. I hope you'll come join us next week if you're not out of town for your 3-day weekend. I'll be back in the pulpit on this upcoming Labor Day weekend to talk about how the Poor People's Campaign connects to the labor movement and how working for economic justice is a core part of Unitarian Universalist identity. Next time you come visit us in person, I hope you'll bring donations for the local food pantry. It goes in the big tub out there. And we thank you for your generosity and for the ways that you help people in need in the community. I also want to extend a personal invitation to all of you here to give religious education classes a try. Last week we got started with a bang, and there is something for everyone. There's awesome age-appropriate programming for our kids and youth. You can register them using the QR code in your bulletin. And there's also 2 different classes for adults. Adult RE1 is a group of individuals who enjoy exchanging ideas and perspectives. They watch an educational DVD for 30 minutes and then discuss it for the remainder of the time. They often stray from the content of the DVD, discussing topics which are currently in the news. There's a good bit of trading books among the participants as well. Adult RE2 is focusing on contemplative practices right now, using image cards as a way to consider the big questions in life. It's a great way to practice speaking with each other and listening to each other around the things that matter to us. Often, these questions will tie into the theme of the Sunday service. Religious education classes are from 9:30 a.m. until 10:45 a.m. every Sunday in that building right up the hill, and we would love to have you. Our benediction is a special musical benediction, an original song by our musical director, Karis Carter. When she sang it for me, I knew it was the blessing we needed as we went from this place today. May this community and this song give you what you need to be yourself this week.
I left my banjo at home today. This song is supposed to be on the banjo. But fortunately, we've got this wonderful man named James who just happens to pick up on stuff real quick. So we're going to play it new, totally new. Let's do it. No matter what you done, no matter what you said, it'll all turn out just fine. Don't worry about a thing. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, it'll all turn out just fine. Just be yourself. Be yourself. Take it, yeah. You said, no matter what you done, it'll all turn out just just fine. Don't worry about a thing. No, no, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, it'll all turn out just fine. Just be yourself. Ooh, ba-da-da-da-da-da, boom, 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 boom. Thank you, thank you. It is just such a treat being with you guys every Sunday. Our benediction is, whoops, we already did that. Our closing hymn for the month of August is number 1057 in your teal hymnal, Go Lift It Up. This is also when we will pass the offering plate. The contributions that you make during the offering supports the way that we build each other up within this community, and also gives us the resources we need to stretch out into the wider world to make a positive impact. If you're making a pledge payment, please mark it as such. And thank you so much for your contributions. Please rise in body and or spirit for our closing hymn. Number 1057, Go Lift It Up. Yay, church!